Hello and welcome back to the Shibaroo Studios YouTube channel. I'm Jonathan. This is the weekly art journal video. Let's go. We are back for the much more cozy and chilled out art journal video. Not quite as wild and hectic, I've realized, as the vlogs, which is quite nice to make it a little bit cozier. We got the candles lit. We got a nice little cup of mint tea. I've been looking forward to this. I always enjoy sitting down and having this nice little chat. So far I've got a really good response from people in terms of this particular video setup that we're using. But for me, you know, as the name suggests, the art journal, it is like a little journal for me, the opportunity for me to just sit down and kind of get my thoughts out there. And I find every time I do this is like the third episode that we're doing. Whenever I do it, I kind of come to little realizations myself while I'm filming this that, you know, previously I wasn't even aware of. You know, I don't sit down and script any of this. I kind of have a rough idea of the topics that I want to cover, but I kind of learn a little bit more about myself every time we sit down and do it. But jumping right into it, there's a couple of things that I wanted to cover this week. The first thing that I'm going to be covering, and I want it to be a staple every week, is just have a sit down and a little bit of a chat about the art that I've put up this week. So straight in, I'm going to pop it up on the screen here somewhere, not sure where it'll be, but I'm going to be talking a little bit about my illustration of the Armagh Planetarium and Observatory that I did this week. It's the next piece, now the third in the kind of ongoing series that I'm trying to produce of sketches and illustrations of famous areas and landmarks in Armagh. And this particular one, I loved producing it. The building itself, it offered something very different than the cathedral piece that I did last week. The cathedral, just by the nature of being a cathedral, the architecture is very elaborate. It has lots of little intricacies. So being able to represent that and just depict little areas of light and shadow and where there would be highlights and so on was a very kind of painstaking process. In terms of the planetarium, it is a building that has a lot of character to itself. There are the big dome and the curved sides. You know, there is an awful lot of unique aesthetics to that particular building, but it was not in any way quite as intricate as what I had done. So I had a lot of fun sitting down to do it. It was something I managed to sit down and get done within the space of a day, which, you know, I talked about last week. One of the things that I was looking to do was I was trying to find a way to streamline the entire illustration process. And it's kind of hard to know if you're succeeding or if you're not at the moment, because the particular type of illustration that I'm doing is the same, but there's very different levels of detail. As well as that, you know, I'm obviously moving from having always worked primarily in traditional mediums whenever I was younger to doing this digitally. I've had, you know, it's a whole lot of new skills that you're having to pick up. Like, a lot of your skills are transferable, but it's more a case of figuring out how to take the skills that you would always use traditionally and work them into a particular digital medium. So I think I've been spending a lot of time in my illustrations just trying to figure out how to get a particular aesthetic into the piece of work that I'm doing. So I definitely sped up and got this piece finished a lot quicker than the previous two that I had done last week and uploaded onto the Instagram, and we talked about them in last week's episode. But I'm not sure if that's due to there wasn't as much detailing needed for the piece, or if I'm just getting a little bit more kind of familiar with the software that I'm using. I mean, it could be a combination of both of them, but it certainly made a massive difference where I wasn't having to spend days just getting a piece done. I was able to knock it out in a day, and realistically that is where I would like to be for this particular series. It's supposed to be something that's quite bright and fun and following that children's book aesthetic that I've mentioned that I've been chasing. So realistically, I don't want to be going super detailed on a piece of work that I would be spending weeks upon weeks finishing. So hopefully I think we're moving in the right direction. One of the things that really came into my mind was the most fun that I've had creating any piece of art so far in this series was the very first illustration that I did, which is this framed piece right up behind me of the Armagh Rhymers on the Navan Fort. I loved creating that piece. I had an absolute blast doing it. And one of the things that I think may have contributed a lot to that was there were actual characters in that piece. Whereas my cathedral drawing and the planetarium drawing, there was no people in it. It's architecture and kind of scenery. And although I think there's a lot of like fun and playfulness, particularly in this planetarium piece with the trees and how that all sits together, I think that there's that little missing element that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And when I remembered the fun that I had creating that piece behind me, I thought, oh, maybe I should be adding some characters into this piece. Maybe all of the artwork that I go forward with, adding some characters might bring a little bit more life into it, a little bit more kind of energy to it. And it might be that little jigsaw piece that I just feel isn't quite there at the moment. So I took that into account when considering what it is that I'm going to be illustrating next. So I went out this morning, I got some reference photography for the next piece that I want to do. I made sure that it's a building as well, but it's in a very public area, so it will give me the opportunity to try and work in characters into the piece. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Should be a lot of fun. So we'll get that done. It'll be uploaded onto the Instagram, so make sure you're over there at Shibaroo Studios, giving us a follow. I'll upload it at some point this week. So the main thing that I really wanted to talk about this week was just a kind of quick recap of the journey that I'm on so far. Obviously, I mentioned 2 weeks ago in the first art journal video that went out, this all came from the idea of documenting me getting back into the art world after 10 years away. And there's been so many little things that I've kind of encountered along the path that probably naively I didn't think that I was going to be encountering. Primarily the main thing was, let's say for example you are uploading your artwork onto any platform, Instagram for example, the one that I would use for most of my art. You can just create your art, put it out there in the world, and it's there for an audience to see. When it came to doing this, documenting things, creating the content for YouTube, I guess I didn't consider the fact that it's not your art you're putting out into the world, it's you that you're putting out into the world. Like, this is me, I'm sat here having this conversation. And it was something that I never really thought about. I kind of just dove in and didn't consider what exactly that meant. Because realistically, when you sit down and do something like this, you are opening yourself up to the world. You're putting yourself right out in there. And I think that in order to do that, I can only speak from my own kind of perspective and from where I am, it involved a lot of overcoming fears that I had around just being who I am. For me, I've mentioned obviously several times throughout all of this YouTube stuff, I'm from Armagh. Armagh, for those of you who aren't from here, who aren't aware, it's a relatively small city when you think about all the cities of the world. And I always remember growing up that in the particular time that I was growing up, in the place that I was growing up, I do feel that there was, in a lot of ways, that kind of maybe small town mentality that people get, where any person who kind of stands out in any way whatsoever is a bit of a target. Like I grew up long hair down to here, dressed all in black, you stand out a little bit. And certainly when you try to express your individuality or put yourself, out from the crowd, it puts a bit of a target on you. And, obviously things were different then. When you're in kind of secondary school, there is that kind of culture that you experience that I think everybody kind of experiences. But when I find myself now as an adult in my current life, that fear is still very real. It's still something that's absolutely there, to stand out from the crowd, to do something different. Like, I'm sitting here uploading content onto YouTube and, walking around the street with a camera, doing the vlog stuff for the videos that we upload every Sunday. And although that's something that's very it's very normalized in society as a whole, like we're all aware of YouTube and vloggers, like we all see it. But for me actually doing it, this isn't something that you come across, where I'm from. You don't see people going around doing that kind of thing. So I definitely think there was a lot of kind of old fears that I kind of grew up with at times that I've had to overcome that were still kind of prevalent in me when I began doing this. I actually remember, I obviously got the call, as I'd mentioned, from RMI that we were going to do the interview, and I'm thinking, right, well, I'm gonna go and do this interview. It's gonna go out to their Facebook, which is followed by, over 70,000 people who are, from Armagh and the Armagh region in general. People that I know, people that I work with, they're going to see this. I've not mentioned that I'm doing this. I've not mentioned that I'm getting back into doing art, that I'm uploading stuff onto an Instagram page, that I'm doing a YouTube thing. I'm going to have to just kind of get ahead of this and let people know. And there was a fear in saying that to people, because you kind of expect people to go, who the hell do you think you are? Like, why are you doing this thing? That's a bit strange. But it's one of those things that you kind of have to do. A lot of the time, you have to think about what the advantage of overcoming fear is. And every time you overcome any fear that you have, there is huge rewards at the other side of it. For example, me kind of overcoming being open with people about, this is who I am, this is the thing that I care about and I'm passionate about, and this is the road that I'm choosing to take to pursue it. It brought such a feeling of freedom, because once you just put that out there, then it's not an issue anymore. And generally speaking, if you're talking to people that you probably know them and talk to them because you think they're good, decent people. So most people will be supportive. They might be like, oh, that's a bit strange. But, in general, people will be quite supportive. If they're not the kind of people to be talking to. But I just felt that then freedom. I can kind of talk openly and freely to the people in my life about what I'm doing. And it's just kind of becomes a bit normal. But you find yourself feeling a freedom, feeling a release. All of that fear, the second you do it, whatever that fear that you have is, the second that you take that leap to overcome it, to, bravely stand up and say, oh no, I'm doing this thing, like that fear goes instantly, like it's gone. If you imagine it like when you breathe out and air is coming out of your mouth, once you get over the initial, can I say this thing, can I express this thing, can I tell people that this is who I am and what I'm doing, once it's out into the world, that's it, it's gone. And you don't feel that anymore. And the sense of just freedom and fulfillment then that you're able to go on and pursue because you're not being held back by that, it's just, it makes such a big difference. And I think that's, in this journey so far, one of the biggest things that I've realized, that as cliche as it might sound, as, Disney movie as it might be, the greatest thing you can do in your life is be you. To be like unashamedly, unapologetically you, as long as you're not, a horrible person. I'm talking about, I'm a person who wants to create art and put it out into the world, happy, fun, vibrant art, not, anything awful. But as long as, you're not a dreadfully, this got weird, as long as you're not some crazy, awful monster, be you and doing that thing that brings you joy, like, it is absolutely the greatest thing you can do, and when you start walking that path, and when you feel the fulfillment that you feel, and when you see opportunities start opening up for yourself, like so quickly into this journey, I seen opportunities coming my way, and admittedly, everyone's not going to get opportunities as quickly as they kind of came to me at the start of this with the opportunity to do the interview that I did. Once you're walking that path, those opportunities come your way, and you get to walk it so much more confidently whenever you feel assured in yourself. So the main thing, like that's the big thing that I wanted to talk about this week, because I feel that, like most things in life, if you feel that there's something that you're struggling with, that is something that's kind of holding you back, most likely you are not the only person in the world dealing with it. So I kind of wanted to share that, because I think that's one of the biggest revelations that I've had in this entire journey. And in working towards overcoming it, I feel that that's the thing that's kind of like the key to unlock the next level of where I can take this journey and where I can go personally and professionally with this. But I absolutely think it was a vital and necessary thing that needed to be done first. So I think that's going to be it for this week. I've sat here in front of this camera and rambled so long that my mint tea is freezing, so I'm going to go make another one. But we will be back again this time next week with the next episode of our art journal. We'll be talking about all of the art that I produce and upload onto my Instagram. The links for all of my other social medias are down below in the description, so do go down there and check them out. Follow. I'm going to be uploading all of my information, all of my art, everything goes on over there, and we will be having our second of our weekly Draw This in Your Style challenge videos on Wednesday, so make sure you're subscribing to the channel. There's going to be a lot of other content coming up in the coming while. I have a lot of other ideas that I'm currently working on. It's just a case of figuring out how to execute them and how to get them done. But we've got our 3 regular videos coming up every single week. Do subscribe, and I'll see you again on Wednesday.